Hello, my name is Meerah, and I'm a Lorekeeper in one of Yog's class libraries, and today I wanted to share with you the story of the Archer class from Black Desert. Now, I know I did mention a bit of Archer's lore in my Children of Sylvia video that I made about a year ago, but I just feel like Ranger, Dark Knight, and Archer deserve their own videos. So here we go. The kamasylve, the tree of life for the inhabitants of kamasylvia, was weeping. The daughters of Sylvia were turning on each other. The Ganel and the Vidir were slaughtering each other relentlessly. Yet, according to some, the Ahib, a faction of the Vidir, had grand plans for the future. They were said to have tasted the sweet nectar of power from the kamasylve, and were looking to take over kamasylvia and bend the nature spirits to their will. There was just one possible roadblock. The kamasylve had a near-forgotten defense force that protected the roots of the tree. These incredible warriors, so far away, could hamper their plans, and so the Ahib had placed a sealing spell on the roots to cut any possible interference. Whereas Ganel and Vidir were the daughters of the goddess Sylvia, the Luthragon were the sons. Believed to be buried deep under the roots of kamasylve, they kept watching with minimal contact to the world above. In the darkness, they built the fortress Adir, a monumental fortress intertwined with the kamasylve. Yet at the root of the tree, the goddess's voice still rang clear. It echoed through the roots and comforted them. They knew that if the voice of their mother could still be heard, then the surface world still stood. But one day, the voice faded. Much like the Ganel, their power was drawn from the goddess, and when the voice faded, they lost what minimal contact they had with the other realm. Without contact, the Luthragon were beginning to feel lost. An elder of the Luthragon stood up. A veteran of Adir who was present when the first foundations of the fortress were laid stood up to reassure them. Although something has happened up there, now is the time we must trust our sisters. Our faith that they can deal with any issues must remain, as we must remain here to protect the roots. They will stand strong as we must stand strong. We must remain here with the light of Sylvia in our hearts to pierce the everlasting darkness. Many years passed. Contact had not been reestablished, nor could they hear the voice of their goddess. The silence was deafening. With each day that passed, each day their light felt dimmer as if the darkness was creeping into their core. One day, the lookouts of Adir noticed something in the distance. An ominous dark cloud rolled towards them. A horn blew in the distance and then was quickly extinguished. The scout had spent his dying breath on warning Adir. Second and third horn blew and then were also quickly snuffed out. The Luthragon in Adir wasted no time in mobilizing. As they manned the ramparts, the horror of their enemy became apparent. A gargantuan rolling cloud of darkness was rushing towards them. The darkness roared, a discordant cacophony of sound. Wails and screeches, cries of pain and pleasure, and of harmonic and dissonant tones. A maddening symphony that could drive fear into any warrior's heart. Yet, the Luthragon stood their ground as the cloud rolled nearer. The generals ordered their soldiers to knock their arrows and aim toward the cloud. Adir was in silence except for the calls from the generals. Even with the approaching wall of sound, the soldiers were quiet, listening for the commands to release. The darkness was just 1,000 feet away, then 700, and then suddenly 500. The generals ordered the release of the arrows, which soared through the air and rained down on the encroaching enemy. Yet the billowing wall of darkness seemed unaffected. They knocked again. This time, the release call was instant, but again, ineffective. The wall of darkness was now only 100 feet from the fortress of Adir. The Luthragon manning the walls were ready for a fight. The tsunami of darkness towered over the walls and then crashed down upon them. Almost instantly, many lives were lost. Yet those who could still fight were hanging on. Suddenly, the dark spirits became mesmerized by a bright light that appeared from the center of Adir. Those spirits that saw the light moved towards it, and they shattered as the light touched the darkness. A young Luthragon was the first to notice. The blood of his fallen comrades was pooling around his feet. There was no hope left in Adir, and he wanted to believe that the light was the beacon of hope. He broke what little rank was left and dashed across the battlefield, heading for the light. "You coward! How dare you turn your back on the will of our mother? Defend the lines!" elders of the fortress screamed out to him. In a fleeting second, the young Luthragon hesitated, remembering his pledge. "I am the arrow that shatters darkness. I am the watcher of the roots. My life is pledged to the walls of Adir." He wanted to stop, to return to the fight, yet something was calling him. Then he felt warmth. A bright light surrounded him, comforting him, begging him to follow. He could feel that this was Sylvia's will. Perhaps the last of her energy. He screamed back to the elder, "Step aside, elder. Mother's will is pulling me through this rift." And with a flash, he was gone. The moon was high in the sky, lighting up kamasylvia with a beautiful, pale light. The young Luthragon stood in front of the sacred tree, taking in its spectacular luminescent glow. His mind raced as he was searching for direction. He was suffocating in this new open space, but more than that, he was drowning in his mind. Where should he go from here? How could he continue to follow Mother's will? The wind brushed against his face, face as it blew a leaf from the tree from the branches. He stared at the leaf intent, looking for an answer to his million questions. His purpose was clear before. He was born to protect the roots of the sacred tree. In darkness he found comfort, and now in the light of the world he was all out of sorts. This world was completely foreign to him. Yet he tried to consume knowledge about the world around him. He discovered books that told of the war between his sisters, their violent conflicts, the death and rebirth of the kamasylve. All these things were not known to him before. Yet one paragraph caught his attention. He learned that the Vidir had placed an enchantment on the roots of the tree, yet the author was not sure why. It dawned on the young Luthragon that it was they who sealed the connection between the realms. A new feeling overcame him, something he had never experienced before: rage. Why is there bloodshed between the sisters? How could they lock away their brothers? They are there from Sylvia's will. They're all made due to her love and affection. Why do they not share in that joy that is life? Lost in the rage that bubbled within, he heard leaves rustle in the distance. He felt a presence watching him. As he turned, the figure vanished, leaving behind black smoke. He didn't need to see who it was, as he instantly knew it was one of his Vidir sisters, the ones who had sealed the sacred tree. He dashed through the forest, chasing the trail of black smoke, running as fast as he could, but he could not close the gap. The crossbow he was wielding was good for short range, but aiming accurately through the trees was impossible. He stopped to catch his breath, drawing the massive great bow off his back. He steadied himself, knocked his arrow, and pulled back the great bowstring. Time seemed to stop around him as he waited to release the arrow. He could see the wind's trajectory around the forest and adjusted his aim. His target entered his sights, and he released the arrow. Leaves of the tree around the arrow rustled as the massive arrow made its way towards the target. The young Luthragon walked the path the arrow took through the trees. He was confident that the arrow channeled his determination through the wind to connect to his target. Yet he found the arrow lodged in a tree. He had missed. As he pulled the arrow from the tree, a voice reached out to him from behind. "Do you think you could hit me with that sluggish arrow? Go back to Adur and protect the roots, Watcher. You should not be in this realm." As the Luthragon turned to the direction of the voice, he saw a powerful, spellbound Cragmeister dig into the ground. Dark energy erupted from the ground, causing the young Luthragon to get knocked down. The pain in his body was excruciating. His insides felt as though they were being ripped apart from the impact. The young Luthragon summoned the last of his strength and stabbed the Vidir with his arrow. Once the ground settled around him, the Luthragon looked around again. The Vidir was gone, however a trail of blood gave away the location of his enemy. He tried to get up to follow the trail, yet his body was still weakened from the blast. The wolf walked closer, pacing around the young Luthragon in a circle. It was the first time he had laid eyes on such a wolf, yet somehow it felt familiar. His confusion continued to grow until he realized the great bow on his back was resonating with the wolf. Although not sure, he assumed that the wolf was a projection of the bow, stoic yet powerful. He was convinced that it was a gift from Mother. Mother Sylvia had to know everything that would transpire. This was her way of safeguarding his life, so that he may fulfill his purpose. He reached out and put his hand on the wolf's head. It let out a long and piercing howl as it dispersed into light, becoming one with the Luthragon. Your destiny is in your hands. Walk the path you believe in. Be sure that any step you take leads you to fulfill your purpose. The Luthragon could not tell who the voice belonged to, yet it didn't matter. His mind had been cleared of all confusion, his pains relieved. He was no longer hesitant to venture out into the world. And that's it! Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider leaving a like or a comment. If you would like to be notified the next time I post a Black Desert lore video, you can hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. Thank you as always to my supporters. If you would also like to support the channel, there are links in the description below. I hope to see you next time here in the library.